So again, my name is Karen, and I'm going to be kind of facilitating the conversation tonight. This is more of a town hall style kind of board meeting. It's not a membership meeting. We're not worried about quorum or any of those formalities. And we're going to go to your insurance expert.
Hello, everybody. I'm Patrick Newton. I'm the principal agent at Florida Condominium and Apartment Insurance. We specialize exclusively in condos, HOAs, and apartment complexes. And as of just a few days ago, I was your new insurance agent. Hopefully I can help facilitate a smooth transition from where we are to where we're trying to go.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dave Laster, Technical Director, Slug Bug Pest Control, and we've been handling your termite for subterranean termite here since 2002. So I'm representing the company and hopefully be able to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Okay, and then Courtney, your property manager is here. Courtney, how is it that the web attendees will be able to ask questions throughout the process?
Right now I'm trying to see if anyone heard me. Oh, you know what? They're not hearing me. I had this tested a minute ago. Sorry.
No problem. I haven't told we have coffee and cookies for those of you who are...
Please, get some for a second. Hold on, hold on.
Probably just put it too close to me. I'm bad luck with technology.
And you tell me now? All right. I'm making sure I've got the right one. I'm seeing that it's working, but it says, and this is a new system that I'm doing just so we can do this live for everybody. But that wasn't done. I don't know why this doesn't work. Well, it says it's transmitting. So can anybody out there hear me?
Courtney, can you tell if somebody's out there?
Yeah, I've got attendees. You can't just call in.
Okay.
John, so let me see if I can. Sorry. Because I can text people individually. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Usually this thing's all lit up blue, and it's not. You see that too? Yeah, it's showing, but it's not talking to me. No.
While Courtney's working on that, just a quick poll. How many of you have lived here since 2002? Okay. Okay. About a third, 40% of the room. In part, one of the main things we're going to be discussing tonight has to do with a 2002 amendment to your documents that we're kind of looking to amend the amendment, or at least that's some of the suggestion. And Patrick and David are here to give you an explanation as to some of the results if you go one way, the results if you don't look to amend the amendment, and some of the benefits that the association and individual owners would be looking at if you vote yes for the amendment to the amendment. So when I say the amendment, we've got two going on. The one that's proposed, so I'll refer to that as the proposed amendment, that the written consent form has been circulated. And this written consent form is proposing to amend the 2002, that Article 7, 2002. The way it's written, oh, no worries. The way it's written is the old language of the amendment is there by and large. If it's stricken through, it's deleted. If it's underlined, it's new proposed language. Just to give you a context as to what we're talking about, the 2002 was an amendment to your original documents filed so many years ago. When you want to amend the document, it is a membership vote. It's not something the board can look to do, not on this type of level.
Hello?
Do any of you, just out of curiosity, do any of you believe that Oakwood is a condominium? That you're living in a condominium unit? You all are very painfully aware that I'm sure that these are townhomes, and you either have the Condominium Act or the Homeowners Act. You fall under the Homeowners Act. If you fell under the Condominium Act, none of this would be an issue. This would all be pretty much statutory, and what this written consent form does, it somewhat is going to mirror what a condominium situation would be. As it is now, my main concern, if I were in your shoes, I would be worried about the person next door to me not having insurance. And if there is a structural problem with your building, as it sits now, your association has literally no ability to treat a structural problem. You have to rely upon your neighbor to fix a structural element to a shared building. And that's very concerning. And it's very odd. I have to tell you, it is incredibly unusual for structural matters to fall on an individual owner, because just like with party walls in between your walls, sometimes it's part your wall, sometimes it's part your wall, and you guys got to figure it out. And if one of you says, well, I'm okay to fund half of it, and the other one says, no, I think I'm going to just leave. I'm going to walk away. You're stuck with a situation that the association has no ability to come in and fix as a common expense. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to actually avoid a very bad scenario that as the buildings age is almost inevitable in terms of structural repairs that are necessary. You have to, in order for the association to come in and have any right to adopt rules, regulations, or spend money to correct structural items, they need, first of all, this to be a common expense. Well, it's not a common expense. The association has no obligation to repair it, which means they can't spend the money on it even if they wanted to. This, in part, is going to vote to allow structural items to be repaired by the HOA as a common expense and gives the association's vendor the right to enter the units to make the structural repairs. Right now, they don't necessarily have a right of entry for structural matters because it's not theirs to fix. Not to sound like a doomsday prophet, but that is your worst case scenario that you're trying to get out in front of. If I told any of you that if there was a structural issue, you would assume the association would have the right to go in and fix it. I would have before I read your docs. I would have assumed that would have been in there. It would have made no sense to not be in there. It's not. So with that, roofs, the underlying roof trusses, structural matters, and then kind of trying to clean up who has what maintenance obligation and clarify who has what obligation in terms of termites. That's what this is all about. So if this were to pass and you were to go from insuring what you're insuring now, which is a slightly larger sphere, to what you're insuring afterwards, which is a slightly smaller sphere, and usually more affordable, and I'll ask Patrick to speak to that in a moment, that also then allows the association to come in and collectively insure that which it must maintain and repair. So you don't have to worry about are the structural items insured. The association will be obligated and able to then pick up that type of insurance as if you were a condominium or an HOA that was written with that in mind. So as to the insurance matters, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick.
I hate to continue with the doomsday theme, but that's really what this is about from my perspective. It's creating a fail-safe against some pretty devastating situations. I would say somewhere between 90 and 95% of the HOAs that we insure that have multiple units within each building, they insure, as does a condo association. There's a number of benefits, and there's a number of pitfalls that it allows you to avoid. Number one, it stretches the insurance dollar further. It's the difference between buying a gallon of milk versus buying 280 gallons of milk. The price is not the same. It also provides you a huge advantage in the wind deductible that you all would pay in the event that there was a devastating loss to the property. Actually, it's literally about 20% of the deductible that you would pay today if a storm occurred based on the HO3 policies that you all have. The actual 2% wind deductible on a $130,000 unit would be about $2,600, whereas the max deductible out of pocket for the unit owners, if we were insured as an association, would be $464.
So it's literally about 20%, a little bit less than that actually. There's a bunch of other circumstances too. The primary one is, what if I'm a unit owner and I've got my unit paid off, it's an asset to me, and adjacent to me in the same building is a unit owner that maybe is the son or daughter of a former owner that passed away, and they could possibly care less about maintaining their unit. The association not having the right to come in and inspect the structural elements of the building, specifically for termites and a number of other factors, it could literally create a situation where you wake up one morning and you've got a $130,000 asset, and you go to bed that night with a $0 asset because the whole structure needs to be torn down because the person adjacent to you decided that they weren't interested in maintaining their unit. So it provides you all a level of protection that right now doesn't exist. The benefits from a premium perspective are substantial. I can't really get into the calculations that allowed us to arrive at these figures. I could do it with you guys on an individual basis. It's just a bit of a complicated calculation. But the savings to each unit owner would be somewhere around $550 to $650 if we insured as an association versus as an HOA. So when the association insures the property, it insures the exterior of the building up to the drywall, including the drywall, and then everything else outward. So that's all the plumbing and the wiring and everything within the walls. Okay, the unit owner then purchases what's called an HO6 policy. Now, this is a condo unit owner's policy. It starts with the texture on that drywall, the paint on that texture, and then everything else inward. So when we're calculating the reduction in insurance expense to each of you guys, we're looking at two different situations. As an HOA, you have an HO3 policy where you're insuring this entire structure. Okay? As a condo association, you have your 1/280th proportionate share of the association's insurance for all the buildings, as well as your individual HO6 policy for the interior of your unit. And when I say $550 to $650 a year, I'm not talking about just your decrease when you go from purchasing an HO3 policy, which covers this entire building, to an HO6 policy, which just covers the interior. We're taking into account in that $550 to $650 amount in annual savings, we're taking into account the increased expense that you all will incur as a result of having to share in your proportionate share, that 1/280th proportionate share of the association's insurance that we're now going to be purchasing as a whole. So it's really the law of purchasing in bulk. It allows us to leverage a much more competitive property insurance rate, which is really what this is all about. And ultimately, even if there were no savings whatsoever, even if it was a complete lateral move from a premium perspective, it would still be a prudent move to make the change to a condo simply because of the advantages provided to you from a deductible standpoint. Taking your individual deductible from 2%, around $2,600, down to a little less than $500 per person, that's a huge advantage. So the fact that you can lower that deductible and incur savings at the same time, it just creates a situation for you guys where not only does it make fiscal sense, but you have this big unknown in the back of your minds right now in terms of the adjacent unit owners and what's going on within their units, and it eliminates that question altogether. It allows you to feel comfortable in knowing that you're not going to wake up tomorrow with an inspector knocking on your door telling you that your building's been condemned due to termite damage that the association wasn't allowed to inspect. So again, I hate to sound like I'm fear-mongering, but there are some dire situations, and I'd rather you hear me talk about them than have to actually experience them yourself. So with that, I'll pass it on to you, Renee.
Okay.
Can we ask a question?
Of course.
Just before we move too fast.
Of course.
Do we have an idea of how many people are insured and are not insured individually today?
I have no idea whatsoever.
No, and the honest answer is under the Condominium Act, there is some requirement to force insurance in place, but you have no mechanism to even verify whether or not a unit owner has insurance.
We really have no idea.
And I heard rumors of maybe 50%. I don't know. Rumors.
Which
So that means if I'm in a building of 12,
probably
and
6
it burns
have,
down,
right? And
maybe
6
it was the 6 that had no insurance.
no one.
Yeah.
Can you tell us?
It's
Yeah, no,
called
That's what I
self-insurance.
want to hear, because I want to understand that. What is it that the rest of us owners who might be insured have to come up with?
Well, remember, your insurance only goes to your portion and not beyond. So if I'm your bad neighbor and I don't have anything, I say, oh, well, I didn't really think it was ever going to happen. I guess I'm self-insuring myself.
Okay. So now you don't come up with the money.
And I walk away.
What is the association's ability to take over
None.
the unit?
None.
So you can't rebuild my unit because you can't rebuild that?
It's not a
Well,
common
that's
expense.
fine.
Right, it's not a common expense. It's not anything the association has the authority to expend funds upon. Now, the only thing is, I suppose if you want to go play out a situation where, okay, the unit burns down, but technically they still owe, association dues. And they do not pay the association dues, or they don't pay taxes, and eventually it goes to a tax deed sale, just whatever what was once the unit, or if it goes through a lien foreclosure, and now we own the slab. Now, in theory, the association would have some ability as the owner of record to do something. But my goodness, you're talking years and money on legal fees to get that slab to then special assess to reconstruct. It's possible, but it's insane and ridiculous in terms of wasting money.
What was your name? Fred. Let's talk about, one second. Let's talk about your exact same example, a 12-unit building, 6 people that are uninsured. But now we're not talking about the way we're currently insured as an HOA, but rather the way we're talking about being insured as a condo association. In that circumstance, as a condo association, if you have 6 people that own their unit outright and they don't have a lender, it's their decision whether or not they want to be risk bearers. If they don't want to insure the interior of their unit, they don't have to. So let's say all 6 of them decline to purchase an HO6 policy that covers the interior of the unit. Your building will still be built back in whole. The only thing is those units that did not have any coverage, those people will be responsible for finishing out the interior of their own unit, starting with the texture on the wall, the cabinets, the floor covering, and everything else inward. And if they don't want to, they have the option of walking away from their unit, but the building is still being built. And it's just a matter of somebody else.
And it's still habitable.
But that's if we go with the...
As a condo, right. As we're insured now, as an HO3, they literally would be saying, we have coverage for this unit here and this unit here and that unit here, and there's adjacent units between them that don't have coverage that aren't going to be rebuilt. So now they're talking about building freestanding structures. It's just a total mess. So it alleviates that issue. And again, it's do we have a right to tell someone else that they have to purchase insurance? Hey, if you paid off your loan and you want to be if you paid off your loan and you want to be a risk bearer, and all things considered, it's not a significant amount of risk. On the liability side, you would obviously, even if you didn't want to insure the property, you would want to obtain some liability insurance for the interior of your unit. But if you don't want to insure the property, that's your prerogative. A lot of people make that decision, and it's not a bad decision. It's not an imprudent decision. It's just a decision each one of us has to make. The real key is right now, someone electing to make that decision to be a risk bearer, it affects their neighbors. If we insure as a condo, it doesn't matter what each individual person elects to do in terms of being risk bearers or electing to purchase insurance. So it alleviates that big concern.
Well, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
No, it's a great question too. Thank you.
Versus how they have codes, you can't really damage built-in hanging ground codes wouldn't allow that.
Right.
There are codes, so they can't leave a danger area. So they would demand the person fix it up. You can't leave a building that's halfway demolished.
But if the person doesn't want to fix it,
then it's a code enforcement lien, and then it goes through condemnation. I mean, the code lien may eventually result in a code lien foreclosure, which just like a lien foreclosure, it has to go through the process.
Right.
But ultimately, the person may still have to walk away, and you have now a condemnation situation on your hands via code enforcement.
And on another point of view, what would our assessment be? Because we would have to, the association's good, but they don't pay for nothing, we pay for it. So our association fees are going to have to go up to cover it.
no question. The association's
That's
insurance?
without a doubt. So,
No question.
And then we have, I haven't been up my mind. So
No worries, no.
that is
Let me just touch on one point that you just mentioned. The numbers that I'm providing to you, talking about between $550 and $650 in decreased annual insurance expense, that includes your HO6 policy and your portion of the association's condo insurance. So on one hand, we're looking at the cost of an HO3 policy as an HOA where we insure the entire building. We're comparing that to, on the other hand, our proportionate share of the association's insurance for the building plus our individual HO6 policy. So it's an apples to apples comparison. We're insuring the entire building this way, we're insuring the entire building this way, and there's a $550, $650 difference
Now,
between
there's different insurances because people with different, so now if, and this is for instance.
No, it's a good question.
If I'm there in my house and Nancy's roof blows off, I'm going to have to pay $400.
No. It's a shared deductible amongst the entire association.
So everybody has to pay for her roof.
You actually don't have to pay at all because there's a loss assessment portion to your HO6 policy. So there's a coverage provision that exists within an HO6 policy, which again is a condo unit owner's policy, that does not exist within an HO3 policy, which is the HOA type policy where we're covering the whole structure. That loss assessment coverage, in order for an HO6 insurer to provide HO6 policies in Florida, they're required to provide a minimum of $2,000 in loss assessment coverage. And that loss assessment coverage is for in the event that a storm hits and the association levies an assessment against the unit owners in order to pay the wind deductible. There's a $2,000 limit of insurance that all of you have or will have in your HO6 policy that will take care of that first $2,000 of assessment to you.
So my insurance will pay for her.
Your insurance would pay the deductible in the event that there was a wind loss that was incurred.
For her purpose.
For any ghost place.
It creates a collective pool, so it's not so much her roof, your structure. It's a collective risk share that is going to be created. And it's just like in a condominium. Again, it's not my roof, your roof. It's that everyone has a proportional ownership interest in what is normally referred to as a common element. Even if it's on this building and you live over here, it's all part of the same association. But it's a collective risk pool.
There's also reserves already set up for emergencies, that if there were deductible, it would come out of reserves, the money would be funded in the reserve.
Again, because it would be a definable association common expense. So it's something that the association could expend money
We got
for.
flood fidelity, we got regular homeowners insurance, right? And we have roof coverage, $2,000 deductible.
Is that for wind damage? Usually it's a percentage.
Yeah.
For hurricane, okay.
And they will repair any portion of the building that's damaged, even though it's not open. It goes to another unit, the damage, they will fix it. But they will contact the owner of the adjoining unit who was repaired and bill them. And they don't bill them, then they go to legal.
Have you ever seen that circumstance play out, or has it just been described to you by an insurance agent?
It's a policy.
Yeah. So insurance companies, these are not altruistic entities out here for the good of man. They're profit-oriented companies. If they can legitimately deny paying any portion of a claim, they will do so without fail 100% of the time. When you're purchasing an HO3 policy covering your building, it doesn't provide coverage for the portion of the roof that extends outside of the parametrical boundaries, the square footage of your specific unit. It's not passing the smell test with me that an insurance company would say, hey, I'll fix the other portion of this guy's building, and then we'll just bill him and try to get money back from him. They'll say, our responsibility to provide coverage stops with the vertical wall on the edge of your parametrical boundary, and outside of that has absolutely nothing to do with us.
Or they're bound by the limits of the policy.
Say again?
They're bound by the limits of the policy. They have a limit to their liability.
That's right.
And they're bound only to the limit of the liability.
Right.
And does not have to extend just to your unit, but to whatever amount our buildings are damaged.
I understand what you're saying. So let's take, for example, to use round numbers, let's say you have a $100,000 unit, and there's $50,000 in damage to your unit and $25,000 in damage to the roof of the unit next to you. They're not going to say, hey, you got $100,000 worth of insurance, we'll pay $50 to repair your building and $25 to repair this adjacent roof. They're going to say, we're responsible for paying for your damage. The $50,000 loss that you incurred. They're not going to pay to replace any portion of your adjacent neighbor's roof. If you can ask your personal lines insurance agent to show you the specific language that he's referring to, that he's referenced when he was telling you what he told you, I'd be more than happy to review it. But I've never heard of such a circumstance where an insurance company is going to voluntarily pay for something they're not obligated to pay.
I have a question from Bill family online. This would mean our individual insurance rates would go down, but our HOA fees would go up, which has been asked and answered basically. How much would the increase in HOA fees? We can't determine that until we actually get to budgeting. But Patrick, do you have some rough estimate numbers?
Yeah.
Just so that we know the cost per unit again, can you do that for this?
Yeah. So the association's insurance as a whole will be somewhere between $100,000 and $125,000. That's for property, general liability.
What is it again? I'm sorry.
Somewhere between $100,000 and $125,000.
Per unit?
$100,000 to $125,000.
So he's asking. Hold on. How much would the increase to HOA fees? It's undetermined.
I can tell you.
Undetermined, huh?
I can tell you. Just for the insurance portion.
So to clarify, the question is that basically you have a line item in your operating budget each year for the association's insurance. For right now, that's basically your general liability and your directors and officers, whether it's through the same carrier, I don't know. And what would be requested with the passage of this written consent form would be to expand that to include additional scope for insurance on these particular aspects of your structure. So you have an insurance bill already, it just doesn't provide coverage for these items. So the question would be, what would the cost of increase be?
Right.
Because you already have some insurance premiums that you pay every year.
Right. So what, yeah, so it's not going to be an easy answer question, but per unit roughly, they're looking, I think what people are looking for is, I pay this much now.
Right.
What's the rough estimate to view my savings? Is that basically what, that's the question everybody keeps asking me.
So let me just
I'm paying $2,100 a month, or a year, sorry, which I actually have someone paying $2,100 a year. How much is it going to cost through the association? So roughly.
We've got some numbers on that. So in order to establish an average cost for an HO3 policy, which is the policy that you guys are currently purchasing, we went to a number of personal lines agencies, got a bunch of quotes, and averaged the premiums, and came out with an amount of $1,700 for an HO3 policy for $130,000 unit. The age of the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
that would change a lot.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
You said 1,700 for what?
For an HO3 policy, as you guys are currently insured now. That's based off of a replacement cost.
That's a lot of money. I have insurance in my business.
What do you pay?
I pay $1,200.
$1,200?
And I cover everything, but I do have impact glass and.
Let's see, but you're in a totally different ballgame than the rest of the unit owners. That impact-resistant glass provides you a massive credit, 30 to 40% of your premium. So you are kind of an anomaly.
I do have impact glass. I have, taking care of my unit.
Okay, keep in mind. So let's say you're paying right now. You said $1,200. Okay, so if you were to purchase an HO6 policy with your impact-resistant glass instead of the HO3 policy you're purchasing right now, it would cost you about $400 because you have impact-resistant glass. For the rest of the people, we're coming to that. So let's say, and this doesn't apply to the rest of the people, it applies to you. Your unit would be about $400.
Hey guys, hold on. Can we just let one person speak at a, excuse me, can we please just let one person speak at a time, because we are on a webinar, and we have people trying to hear, the conversation of one-to-one. So if we can hold it down in between, that would be great, you know what I mean? So we don't have a lot of background noise.
So the question that you're asking is the big picture question. How's my cost going to change? So again, you're at $1,200 right now with your impact-resistant glass. That's a different circumstance than everybody else is going to be subject to.
This person is actually paying $1,560.
Okay.
Most of them are around $1,400 to $1,600. $1,400.
So let's look at your specific situation. Let's look at your specific situation, okay? You're paying $1,200 for the HO3 policy. An HO6 policy for your unit with impact-resistant glass would be around $400. Okay, the increased cost that would be assessed to you, not assessed, but part of your HOA fees, you would pay an additional $410 annually. So you've got a $400 policy, you've got $400 in expense that's going towards the association's policy, so you're at $800 versus the $1,200 that you're currently at now, so you're $400 ahead of the game.
Okay, now I have a question on this.
Sure.
I control my insurance. I can go up higher on my deductible, I can go lower, I can control what I pay.
That's right.
If I give the right to the association, I no longer have that kind of power.
You still do. You still choose your deductibles that you pay for the interior. That's correct. And the association's deductibles are much more competitive than the deductibles that you would have as an individual HO3 insurer. Again, you know, if we're talking about a $130,000 unit with a 2% hurricane deductible, that 2% amounts to $2,600 in hurricane deductible exposure. If we insure as an association, we would have a 3% deductible, which would be spread out among 280 unit owners, and then we would have that loss assessment coverage provision that's coming from the HO6 policy. So that would reduce your deductible down to $464 versus the $2,600 deductible exposure you have right now when you can choose your own.
But that should cost this year. And all of us know car insurance and everything goes up every year.
Yeah.
So we could be saying yes to something we have no power of 3 years or 5 years down the road.
I understand what you're saying.
But remember though, they also, it's not just your control over your association or your insurance. You clearly have that under your HO3. What you have zero control over is the neighbors on both sides of you. No matter what, you may control your unit, your fiefdom, and the two on the outside, if they have no insurance, then you have zero control over that. The idea of having a collective insurance policy is the peace of mind that there is insurance on each unit.
I understand what you're saying. We at one point, back I don't know how many years ago, and about 15 years ago, we did the same thing to ours. We termited, we had a bond, we did everything for just that one unit. Long before we moved together, we did everything together. Everybody asked us, well, are we going to do it for theirs? And our answer was, if you guys go flat, we'll just have more grasslands. Yeah. I mean, we were fine, we did it ourselves.
But if you're one of the people in that building, you're going to have a very different opinion.
Maybe, but...
Well, would you rather have a house or...
doesn't exist. I mean, you know, if there's one, there's one.
I understand what you're saying. Let me touch on something you mentioned a second ago. You know, there's a stigma with regards to insurance that we're all accustomed to in our personal lives for our homeowners insurance and our auto insurance. And I'll tell you, it drives me absolutely crazy. It's the same, I experience the same thing that you guys experience. I'll move my auto insurance to a new auto insurer for a great rate. They'll save me 20-25%. Then they'll increase my premium 15% per year until next thing you know, I'm wondering what kind of business model these people have in place to where they think they can lowball you up front and then just increase the pricing. That's not at all how the world of commercial insurance works. We don't have one single company and that company says your premium's going up this year and we say darn. That's not how it works. We shop this property insurance among 25 prospective property insurers every single year. And the property insurer that's writing the property policy right now, not right now, but if we were a condo, they know that that insurance is being shopped every year. So they realize that they're going to be held to a certain standard, and if they want to try to pass on a 5% premium increase per year, we'll move the insurance. Because not moving the insurance and allowing that 5% premium increase to incur for a few years in succession creates a circumstance where I'm susceptible to lose my job as your insurance agent. Because somebody else can come in and do the actual job of shopping the insurance, finding the best price, and then the account leaves me. So you got to understand that the world of commercial insurance is very different than what we're all accustomed to in the racket that I call personal lines insurance.
But it's also we have no control over our associations, then the bill can just keep going up.
Well, that's your board of directors having a fiduciary obligation to have competitive bidding on the insurance and to keep an eye on the premium. I mean, it's no different than saying you have no control in a condominium or an HOA, but you do have a board of directors who are duly elected, and they are fiduciaries to
watch over that issue.
And that comes down to a lot of people in here pay their insurance with their mortgage. Easy for them to pay.
It's actually one of our questions.
The insurance, when you have what's called PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, it does not include your association dues. It's just those 4 items. Then yes, your mortgagee has a mortgagee clause, meaning the bank gets to say, "Ooh, put my name on your insurance." You can still have a mortgagee clause. Correct me if I'm wrong. The mortgagee clause is just that now you have the different notation as to who the insurance carrier is. Correct?
That's correct.
So there's still going to be a notice to your bank that yes, you have insurance. It's just going to be a slightly different one. At most, your lender might say, well, we also need to see a copy of the master policy, is what's commonly referred to. And then Courtney would say, okay, here's the master policy you can show to show that the structure is insured. And the lender says, that works for me.
I have a couple questions from online. The first one, I didn't get to finish Mr. Family's question, but it would, I know the answer, but just so we do it, would the association or insurance cover roof and hurricane damage?
Of course.
So the answer is yes. How will Christopher Crane, how will that affect our mortgage lender? And then he goes on to ask a little bit more clearer for us. Question, if we currently have our homeowner insurance as part of our mortgage agreement, so do we replace the homeowner insurance policy and replace it with
You would replace an HO3 policy that you
With
currently
the
with the HO6.
Right, and the mortgagee clause would be on that HO6.
And then your lender, in order to verify that the association has insurance and that you're not just insuring the interior of that unit, they will request a certificate of insurance from the association's insurance agent, and we'll provide that to them.
So you might also, when it comes time when they do get lower mortgage payments, because the premiums are today.
Probably, but they only do escrow adjustments once a year, and it's usually, if they can only, by federal law, they can only keep a cushion. An aggregate adjustment has to be done once a year. They can only keep so much held back, and each person has a slightly different formula. So if you have at a certain time too much money in your lender's escrow account, then they would go ahead and make the monthly adjustment because of that reduction in your insurance that they have to hold back, and cut you the difference. It's the same thing if you ever had property taxes in your initial year and then went to homestead the next year and they dropped. They do the same type of adjustment for your taxes that they're collecting and would kick back any excess over that aggregate adjustment. Correct, and because your HOA dues are not in that PITI calculation.
In this young lady's example in the back here, she has a $1,200 payment. Maybe hers is being taken out of her mortgage. She would be proactive and call her mortgage company and say, hey, you know that policy that you were escrowing for me on a monthly basis to the tune of $1,200 annually? That policy is now $400, and they would reduce the amount that they're withholding. And I understand there is an ease, as you mentioned, to sitting back and allowing the mortgage, the lender rather, to actually escrow that money for you and pay the insurance premium for you. But I don't think there's anybody here in this room that would prefer to have a lender pay a $1,200 bill for them rather than the lender paying a $400 bill, them paying a $400 HOA fee, and keeping $400 in their own pocket.
But there's a lot of people here that have taken their HOA fees, yearly or quarterly. If it's taken out of their money and their rent, that's something, mortgage right from the beginning. There's a lot of people that might have a hard time paying a figure. Now, unfortunately, I don't, but I do know that there are people who struggle to pay their association dues big time.
Right, but your mortgage expense that you're incurring is decreasing because the insurance money that's being escrowed for you has just gone from $1,200 down to $400. So you got an $800 lump sum in your lap right now, and you use half of that to pay your association fees that have now increased, and you keep the other half for yourself.
How does this affect the reverse mortgage?
It doesn't really affect the reverse mortgage at all from our end right here. I can see there potentially being an issue, and you would probably know more about this than me, but I could see there being an issue with the reverse mortgage as the property is currently insured. If you have an HO3 policy, but you're attached to another unit right next door, if I'm not a lender, but if I were, I would want to know what's going on next door, because that guy's irresponsible and leaves a cigarette on the couch and burns your place down. It's, you know, there's an increased risk associated with living in multifamily housing. But again,
yeah, the answer is a reverse mortgage company it's still just a mortgage. They're still a mortgagee, and they have a mortgagee interest, which means they have a secured interest in the property. They want to make sure it's not dissipated or wasted, and they do require that you pay taxes, you pay insurance, and you pay association fees. That's the trinity of a reverse mortgage. You have to not pay it is to waste the property. As long as they see that you have proof of insurance supplemented by the master certificate of insurance, it is not a material default or any default of your reverse mortgage requirement. You are obligated to notify them that there's a change, because otherwise they're going to think, hey, this insurance we had on file, this HO3, it didn't get renewed. They're going to think you dropped your insurance. So you would have to get to them the proof of current insurance that it's changed, maybe a copy of the amendment, and the certificate of the master policy, and it would not be considered a breach of your reverse mortgage.
It would be considered a benefit from the lender's perspective, because now they're in a position, if you're insured as a condo, where they know for a fact that the skin of that entire building is insured. Whereas right now, they don't know if your adjacent unit owner has coverage. But if that's not,
They don't care.
if they don't care with the current situation that exists, I mean, it sounds like they don't. It makes sense to me. If they don't care about the reverse mortgage with the way the situation exists today, they certainly won't care about if it changes to being insured as a condo, because there's more coverage that exists at that point in time than there is right now.
Right. I suppose if you were to go in reverse and you were to go to what's considered a lesser degree of insurance, then you may have an issue. But typically, as long as you're insuring the value, the replacement cost, and when you put the two, the master policy and your unit policy together, as long as the level of insurance in terms of amount of coverage doesn't dip below whatever your contractual obligation is, you can cobble the two together.
We insure 129 associations, thousands of units. There are many, many reverse mortgages within those condo units. Never once have I ever received a phone call from someone telling me they've got an issue with their reverse mortgage. That's what tells me, without really knowing, that's what tells me that there is no issue there. It's a very good question. It's an important question.
So is 400 that rough estimate for the HO6?
No.
Which is
No, that's just for her unique situation, because she has been.
No, but for what the increase in dues would be, right?
Yeah, that's not going to change for anybody. That's going to be it's going to be about $410 per year. It could be $395, it could be $435, but as a rough estimate. So then what you're really looking at is the average, unit price for an HO3 policy, which is covering the entire building, is about $1,700. The average price for an HO6 policy just for the interior of the condo unit is about $700. So that's a $1,000 difference. So your insurance cost that you have has been decreased by $1,000, and then you have a $400 increase in your fees. So you're still net $600 ahead.
I have another question online, and I'm going to let you answer this. And it's Mr. Family. The new insurance, if we go this route that passes, would it cover the adjoining walls, meaning the
Most definitely.
interior?
Most
no,
definitely.
the interior wall. So between the unit, the
non-load bearing
Partition.
Yeah.
Partition walls. Yes.
Yeah.
The policy would cover the partition walls, yes.
Is this what they call an all-in policy versus studs out?
What you have now would be called an all-in policy, an HO3, from exterior paint all the way inward. The HO6 policy, the condo unit owners policy, that just supplements a condo association's policy, where again, the condo association covers from the exterior paint on those walls inward to the drywall and including the drywall. Includes the drywall, yes. So if there's water damage as a result of a leaky pipe, it's the association's responsibility to repair the drywall, and then your expense begins with the texture on that drywall and the paint on that texture.
If the lender was aware of the current situation, make it more difficult for people that want it?
No, it's absolutely not. Right now, the underwriting requirements would be that for a purchase money mortgage or a refinance, that you would show proof of insurance at the individual ownership level. So it's irrespective. It has no impact.
We made modifications on the termite when we worked on it. Can you explain that, like what the verbiage added, so that Dave can kind of help out with that portion?
Well, we have on the written consent form, the association, as you have pursuant to that 2002 amendment, the association shall provide termite inspection, did not have the word treatment, and bonding. So it said inspection and bonding to the extent available for all common buildings and individual living units. We had to put in the word treatment. It made no sense that you had this amendment that you would look for it, find it, try to bond against it, but not treat it. So one of the holes we tried to plug was to create, again, the notion that treating this termite damage is a common expense and therefore something that it is lawful for the association to expend money on. When your dues are collected, they're collected to pay for common expenses. Without the word treatment in there, it's kind of difficult. We did want to make clear, too, because we're going the route of this interior in proposal, that excluded from any termite treatment would be the interior modifications or improvements, floor covering, and basically trying to keep it in line with what the notion of a condominium unit is versus a homeowners association unit in terms of insurance. So it allows us to treat it. Also added in language that states that if it is termite damage to a structural component, wherever it may be located, if it's structural, the association has the right to go in and treat it. In theory, once we're allowed to treat it, we're allowed to have it bonded. So if we have a termite bond in place now, structural issues appear later, that's going to fall under the association's bond if it is a structural matter. Firewalls aren't structural, party walls generally aren't structural, but if it is structural, we wanted to be able to bond and basically insure from termite damage and make it very clear that the association has the right of entry into a unit to effectuate those repairs if necessary. Yes, ma'am.
Did you explain that was termite?
Well, I'm kind of more in.
I'll be glad.
I was going to say.
Let's start off with some good news. Okay, I've got several multi-unit places where they have let the homeowners handle it individually rather than the whole building. Problems there arise when termites come up from one unit not covered and do damage in the one I have under coverage. Who's liable for that damage? Glory is you're all covered. Okay, the termite bond. Actually, bond may not necessarily be the correct wording. It's a warranty. You have one of two. One is a limited warranty, which is a retreatment only policy. The other is a damage repair warranty, which means that we're liable for up to, in this case, $1 million per building of damages where active subterranean termites are found. Active is the key word. We took over this property in 2002. Another good news, we haven't had active subterranean termites here in the history since we started treating it. Prior to us treating the buildings, it was under another company's bond warranty. They were having problems. They contacted us. I was the original salesperson here in 2002. Me and the owner of the company got together and figured out what we needed to do. In 2002, all of your stucco around these buildings ran below the grade. I told them, I'm sorry, I will not give a damage warranty on this property unless they cut the stucco and get that foundation visible. That way I could spot termites. When this was done, there was some situations. Some buildings worse than others, but all of them had evidence of termites in certain areas, in which a lot of them became aware of that when they were in the process of cutting the stucco. So what we've got to bear in mind is buildings in here could have hidden damage that I'm not aware of, that you're not aware of. We just don't know what's behind walls because it happened prior to my treatment. That's where the live termite comes into case. If you get live subterranean termites, I'm jumping in and taking care of it. I have a guy that is a licensed contractor who does all repairs. Yes, ma'am.
Do you repair and replace damage, or do you just retreat?
I retreat and replace damage where live subterranean termites
That's
are.
fine.
Yeah.
A repair and, okay.
It is a repair warranty. Another great thing was, I'm not going to throw numbers. I don't know if I'm at liberty to do so, but the booster treatment that we did in 2014 was about $27,000 less than you paid originally to get the treatment done. Okay? Your warranty since 2002 has not gone up. And we cap that to a maximum of a 5% increase if it does go up here in the next 2 years. That's the kind of company you're dealing with. Okay? We are a local company, and as far as treatment-wise goes, we're not out to make a killing on the treatment. We're out to protect the investment, and we'll make up that difference on the annual inspections. Of course, I have 2 inspectors that I do pay to come out and perform the inspections yearly. Brings up a situation. Every year, we make a strong attempt to get out here and perform full interior, exterior inspection. This is not uncommon. My guys come in and got yelled at by 10 or 11 people because we were a nuisance to them. And that's normal when you're dealing with multi-unit structures. Unfortunately, not so much the homeowners, it's the tenants that we're bugging them. They falls down to the situation we're talking about. They don't really care. We want to perform interior, exterior inspection. This is important for me maintaining my inspection reports as far as what evidence is visible. It's important for us catching problems early. 98% of the inspection is outside, as long as you've got that foundation visible from the stucco cut to the ground, being able to see 3 to 4 inches at least. I can spot termites coming up the perimeter that quick. But we got to do inside because they also, being that subterranean termites come from the ground up, and come up around your interior plumbing pipes of your bathrooms and right into your bathroom walls. That's your common area of infestation in block homes, and the worst part of it is they can be there 5 years unseen. So I could buy a lot of liability if the termites show up there, and I'm not beyond paid for it.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There are a lot of, we call it small groups here. And normally they own their units, but they're only in here maybe 4 months.
Yes, ma'am.
Some are new 6, depending. But what if they're back in Michigan or something, and you find termites? Now, what about getting into their unit?
I can answer that. I have keys to many of those units available to me, or I have phone numbers in order to get into those units.
Yeah, the only way I can keep the renewal costs down is if I can get the inspections done, and with 2 guys, good inspectors, doing full inspections 2 to 3 days. 2 days, full days. I mean, I'm talking 12, 13 hours. Okay? So, but the only way I can keep your costs down is to do that as set. I can't keep sending inspectors out to catch those individuals that just didn't cooperate with the program. So it's very important that some type of arrangement is made, whether it's with a neighbor of yours, whether it's, with the association management. It's very important that arrangements are made, because I would love nothing better than my people to be able to get in every year and protect your investments.
Okay, yes.
Well, and this amendment also does give us right of forcible entry if there's a unit owner who does not have a key on file with the association or does not permit access. This amendment takes care of that issue. Again, and under the Condominium Act, it's statutory. The association has the right of entry, and they can't be accused of trespassing by having maintenance pop the lock and get us in there if there's an emergency or a treatment need. If your documents are silent. So one of the things in this written consent form does address that right of entry of the association to effectuate repairs if the owner refuses to cooperate or just is not heard from.
You know what we see in the insurance industry far more often than this type of termite damage, where I'm next to a unit that may have termites, and I want you to get in there and inspect it and make sure that it's not coming through to my wall. The circumstance that we see 9 times out of 10 whenever a claim is filed is a bursted water pipe behind a wall, and then the subsequent water damage, the mold. And that's where it becomes absolutely essential that the association have the ability to go into any unit whenever they need to in order to make sure, because mold is a terrible thing. Mold in one unit can clear the other 10 units, 11 units in that building very quickly, whereas termites, you know, they're going to be a slow-moving circumstance. So it's essential in order to ensure, you know, the health and the safety of everyone, that you have the ability to get into your neighbor's unit if they are out of town.
I can tell you we've already had 3 water issues since I've been here in September. Needless to say, I do have keys to every one of those units now.
I do want to bring up the point when it comes to above ground moisture. Okay, understanding subterranean termites require moisture. They come up from the soil, they feed on the wood, every 24 hours they're going back and forth, they're going back to the soil to gain moisture. If you have an above ground moisture problem that can support an active colony, it renders my soil treatment totally useless. Because if you've got an existing roof leak and your roof is wet, these termites can get their moisture from there. So I will not take liability of active subterranean termites in association with a consistent structural condition moisture leak. Because there's not really much I can do with it. Tell you to fix the moisture leak, then they're generally going to dehydrate and die right where they're at. So of course I would do some type of remedial treatment to get control over the problem. But it's kind of out of my realm of protecting. I can prevent subterranean termites, but I can't prevent something where they're surviving off an above ground moisture source.
One of the snowbirds is online hearing about all the key issues and getting into units, and he just said, remind me to get a key to you.
Love it. Great.
I don't want to point out who it is so no one knows whose keys I have, but yeah, they said, remind me to get a key to you. So.
Liability with the keys, because this place is burglar proof, and if you have keys, they know who snowbirds are, and
The prior manager has had the keys here the whole time she was here. Most of the keys that I have are from her, and I apparently never had an issue. There are cameras going directly into that office, so I will know who's going into the office and everything else. My door is also supposed to be locked, even with both employees that have access. It's supposed to be locked every time we exit that office, unless it's visible sight, you know, like I'm physically sitting here, I can see if someone goes in my office. It is supposed to be locked, and the only person that has a key is one particular board member, who I won't even state because no one should know who has access to my office, but it is a board member. In case I'm not here as an emergency, a board member has that key.
This is my experience with other people, and their attitude was that they had an alarm on their house and everything, and that's to keep everybody out. They don't feel it's safe to let you guys know their alarm code. You know, that's their issue.
We wouldn't necessarily know the alarm code. The alarm can go off, but it's a legitimate right of entry. It's not a criminal situation.
I have several homeowners that can turn their alarm off from the computer, and that's what they do. I went into a unit to access the unit today. I notified the owner we need it in there. I know how to, I get in. He turns off the code, the security system. I go in, and then I notify him I'm out of the unit, and he turns it back on.
This is also brought up to me that we have a way to turn off the water from outside. Then if it's a fire, so we can turn off the water if there's a water problem from outside when we need to in a unit. And if it's a fire, we call a fire department, they can get anywhere. That's what's my opinion.
So let's think about this logically. Okay, you're up north. You're away from your unit. Somebody calls you and says there's a water leak in your unit. Are you going to be disinterested in somebody going into your unit and solving the problem, or would you rather let that water fester and create mold?
Now, that's an interesting answer. Some people might say if your water's off, I'll come out and take care of it. I want to see myself and deal with it myself before they allow somebody that they don't know it. I'm just being honest.
I'm with you, but really what you're talking about.
Or you might say to me, Mary, check it out for me. I've been asked to check out people's property around here. It's not unusual.
I'm with you.
And Mary, you have the key, go do it. Versus leaving it here, we have employees that change hands, and some of the employees in the past have been
I'm with you.
Well,
So, I mean, I would rather have somebody who I trust, have the key to my place than somebody I.
keep in mind, for all of the millions and millions of units, of condominium units there are in the state of Florida, there are keys on hand with property managers that work for licensed and insured corporations like you have here. Now, the right of access for termite, it is rarely deemed an emergency entry. So what happens for termites is you post a notice on the door under the Condominium Act. Reasonable notice is at least 24 hours posted notice of intent to enter. Management, as a rule, always tries to have the owner or occupant present when they enter. It's just to avoid the allegation of criminal trespass for our vendors when they need to go in and treat.
Yeah, that's something too.
What's that?
Or our employees.
Yeah, there's liability.
Well, the glory of my requirements on scheduling inspections is I always look ahead to see when we have large complexes, which we have a lot of them.
24 hours notice.
Well, that's what I'm going to cover with you.
But if I took off for the weekend, 24-hour notice on my door is going to help me know.
So I can certainly understand that, but I will tell them schedule it 3 weeks in advance.
Right. The 24-hour reference was just a mandatory minimum required by the Condominium Act. It's not best practice. And again, with termites, you rarely have an issue where you have to get in immediately. You can schedule the matter 3 weeks in advance, 6 weeks in advance.
Typically, I try to do 7 to 14 days. May I want to answer some of these questions. First of all, typically I give 7 to 14 day notice for everything that I can possibly give notice for. We did just have a building inspected for drywood termites actually, and they all got 7 days notice. There were people out of town. One of her units I do not have keys for. She made arrangements with me and another neighbor. So as long as we have access to the unit, meaning when you go out of town, I know, not you, Lindsay, I meant Frank. I know who, you tell me who has a key to your unit. So, which explains this crazy party in Frank.
Nobody to blame.
That explains those crazy parties, but I actually don't have a key to his unit. We make, as the manager, and the prior manager did this as well, made accommodations for people. I don't have a key to another unit, but the mother lives close by, and she comes and lets me in. We're not demanding a key to every unit, but the right.
We're demanding access.
The access. So if you go out of town, and you don't want us in your unit, but you don't care if Ed lets me in an emergency, you just let me know that.
Well,
and we make all the arrangements possible.
I understand that if I knew, but what if I decide to go camping through? I'm not going to let Ed know where I am. Nobody's going to know where I am.
But that would be enter in an emergency.
Yes.
That's the only way we enter that unit, though, is if we didn't already give you 7 day notice. The only other way we're not going to enter because Dave wants in your house to look for termites. But if your house is on fire,
okay, so what we're really talking about, though, the much more prevalent circumstance is a water loss. Okay, so if you got water coming out from underneath your front door, there's no time for us to see if we can get in touch with you. And now your unit is filled with water, and that water is going to fester and create mold. I'll tell you this, we insure, just at my little agency alone, we insure somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 units. I've never once dealt with a circumstance where a property manager or a maintenance man either burglarized or vandalized the interior of a unit. And it's not because they just throw caution to the wind, but there are fail-safe measures, including you get a safe, you bolt it to the floor, you put all the keys in there, and you give one person access. We're not talking about people wanting to go and sit on your couch and watch TV. We're talking about people helping you prevent your loss from exacerbating by getting in there now rather than waiting. And the key is, that loss exacerbating, it doesn't just negatively affect you, it affects everybody around you. Such is a circumstance that you're dealing with in multifamily housing. And you really just don't have the liberty of saying, I don't feel like dealing with this right now. Maybe that mold's going to fester and affect the people around me, and that's their problem. That right is essentially taken from you, and It's placed in the interest of the association to do what's in the best interest of the people.
If I'm right, because I think you did have a water leak that blew up somebody's house. Basically, our walls between the units that coexist are all cement. Right, that coexist with each other. And any wall that connects to your property is cement. It's only the walls that don't that are wood. To each unit. That isn't true up in the back and on the sides of it are cement.
Well, I'll tell you why it doesn't really matter. Number one, cement is porous. Number two, there are holes in every single one of those walls where pipes and wires are being passed through. And the roof, the ceiling, is a wooden roof with drywall in between you and that roof and the crawl space going next door. So to think that water can't travel, or more specifically mold can't travel from one unit to the next because there's a block wall, that's just a fallacy.
Same goes with termite.
Yeah.
Those that think you got a block home and won't get them, it's, good luck.
I'm with you, though. Hey.
Sure.
Because a lot of them are out of state, and that is an issue when you live someplace else, you know? They're not going to be back for months on end, so they do worry about it.
I think we've beaten the dead horse on entry to the unit. Are there any other questions that we can answer? The written, I can tell you real quick, this written consent form, if signed, it is valid for 1 year from the date that you sign it. And part of the reason the board decided to approach this kind of somewhat complicated and substantive issue is so that there is no rush to judgment. No one is asking for you to turn these in today, vote yes or no. Think about what is best for you and your property ownership rights. Tonight's panel was simply to answer any questions that you may have. And there is no perfect fit. I'm not expecting a 100% approval amongst the members, but you do have to get 2/3 for this to be effective. From the recommendation of your association's professional vendors, we saw issues with your documents as they exist and as we have seen issues in other associations, which is why we are bringing this to you, not as a perfect solution, but as a far better set of documents than what you currently have, and as a way to avoid some truly awful situations. Hope that they never come. But this written consent form, again, is good for 1 year from the date it's signed. If you sign it, then you just turn it into Courtney and you're done with it. And if the board gets the requisite number of votes within that period, then they will hold a special meeting of the board to ratify the vote of the membership. So there is no time pressure. No one is asking you to make a decision tonight. And sir, I think you had a question, and ma'am, did you have a question?
This is related to slug bug and stuff training tonight.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there a way of reducing number of termites underground?
Well, that's what we do. We apply a product called Termidor. Termidor came into play around 1999. This product is amazing. It's a transfer product. If they get into it, they transfer from termite to termite and eliminates colonies. It eliminates queens. Okay? The best thing you can do to help prevent termite is watch the mulch level, maintain 3 to 4 inches of the foundation between the stucco cut and the ground. This also is going to protect your stucco because it's got a wire mesh. If you let that sit in the ground, the wire mesh starts to rust, starts to buckle, the stucco cracks, allows for above ground moisture. Now you've got a whole other issue on your hands. Okay, but living in Florida, that's probably about the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of if you're going to get termites in Florida, it's a matter of when. So maintaining good inspections, maintaining a good booster treatment every 10 years is highly advisable. But I'll be quite honest, I've been in the business for 37 years. I'm from the old chlordane days. Okay, chlordane killed everything. Okay. Well, chlordane has a lasting effect of 30 to 40 years, so even houses treated with chlordane are getting infested every day. But Termidor, if I could use the word silver bullet, this product's been an amazing product. Amazing product. I've seen a lot of stuff come and go since I started in the business in the early 80s, and this stuff is quite amazing.
don't they not know how long it works because it's been working ever since the product came out?
Well, that's the thing. A lot of that, as far as your
How long?
longevity,
They're still looking.
well, it makes a difference with the conditions we have. Pesticides and termiticides can be broke down by direct sunlight. Could be broke down by excessive moisture. Look at our afternoons here lately, and then we get tornadoes and everything else, or hurricanes and some tornadoes. But the moisture conditions are perfect for breakdown in Florida simply because of our sandy soil conditions. You get up north where you're dealing with clay soil, that product may last a long time because Termidor has molecules that makes it bind to the organic matter of the soil. It becomes part of the soil. The only way it's going to generally leave is if you dig it out or given time, like just a normal breakdown of the product. That's one of the reasons the alcohol chloride. It didn't break down, it was permanent. It drifted down into the aquifer. So that was one of the reasons they got rid of chlordane because it never broke down.
So are there any more questions for our panel from the internet people or?
A lot of those other points.
I actually need at least the first and the last page.
We would ask that you go ahead and vote on the first page. We wanted to put option 1 as the no, so that no and yes were on the same page. Initial next to which one you would select, and then you would need to sign the third page. I would ask if you would just initial the second page to kind of, so that we, if we needed to, could identify how to keep them together.
I'm stapling them right back in, and they're all fully
Then that's fine. For proper execution, the first page and the third page need initial and signature. I'm a lawyer, I initial every page. It's a habit.
I think you initial emails that
I probably do.
That I send you. I think we print it, initial it, and then send it back.
Yeah. That's me.
Okay, that one's yours.
That one's me.
All right, any questions from the people signed in on the webinar? They might type slow, I don't know, but I gave you a minute. So, I'm going to pick on the people in the webinar, because I did poll, curious, you know what I mean? So, and I'm calling them out right now.
How many people do you have?
I'm not telling.
Okay, keep it secret.
I am. All right, no, actually 11 people showed up. So somebody is still kind of neat. So the first poll was, you know, at the time, coming into the meeting, you know, are you for or against this? You know, just how do you feel? And out of 78% that voted, somebody wasn't paying attention. Okay, 29% was in favor, 71% was not sure. Okay. So they really did not know coming into the meeting, which is why we did this. The next question was with more for Patrick, but it was, you know, do you have concerns about your neighbors not having insurance? 100% yes. The last question was, after hearing more, how will you vote? And 100% were in favor of it. That voted. So that just kind of gives you an idea. And I'm going to give one last example of people not having insurance that actually have a mortgage, by the way. Some of you may know the story and heard it already through the rumors, but it is quite interesting. My raccoon. We had a raccoon dig through somebody's roof. They called me to fix the roof. We don't fix that. As an association, we do not fix that. You know, that's an act. That would be something. The parrot, well, yeah, it was a
very hungry raccoon.
No, it nested inside of the soffit or the crawl space. And they weren't aware that it was up there. And you know, where it bored in, you couldn't really see it. So they actually came to us, hey, repair this. No, I can't. You know what I mean? It's an insurance claim. I don't have insurance. And they got a hold of her.
I'm going to provide you a copy of what I created before this meeting, and I'll make it a little more user-friendly, and you can share it with everybody. But when you just look at the dollars and the cents in terms of two things, really, the decrease in your overall insurance cost as individuals and the very substantial decrease and your deductible exposure, put everything else aside. It's kind of a no-brainer.
That's okay, I understand it, and my bill is $1,600, you were right in the time, right? And it's a Tuesday, so I don't know about some street drugs that have footage, but, and so, what you get is, that actually looks like it would be down to 800.
Yeah.
404.
Yeah.
And it's to me a no-brainer. All right, and I know part of the 1,600 is roof. All right, because it's an old roof. All right.
Not for
Oh, I
long.
know that was a couple $100 and why it's up at
Correct.
Your roof has been scheduled.
Yes.
You've been hearing that for years, huh?
No, it
Well,
literally.
it's not the extra money every year because apparently when they did the roof way back.
Yeah.
it didn't, my roof was done separate.
Oh, yeah.
The owners were separate, but it didn't have separate.
Yeah, your roof is on my calendar. It is that set. So what, we have a new question.
I'm trying to say, as some people know, I only pay under $1,000 for 3 to insurance. The first year I paid it out cash because I had just assumed the loan. And then the next year I refinanced and it went into my payment. So I don't feel it technically. But so by your standards, I might save $100 or $200 a year, but it's still worth it.
From the deductible perspective.
Right.
And it's hard to appreciate that now. The time that's really easy to appreciate, it's right after a storm has come through and everybody's got it.
Matthew, we were all scared in October that something could have happened.
Right.
Thank God that it didn't, but it could have happened to a lot of our houses.
Right.
I mean, that's the comfort piece, everybody's insured.
That's correct.
Hurricane comes in, knocks down 5 buildings, we're all out of business.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, we're roommates.
You really are.
So Chris Crane actually just he threw his numbers out there basically. He said, so we pay 14. I guess this is his scenario. He pays $1,400 for insurance, $2,000 for dues, so he's at $3,400 a year. He said, $800 for insurance and $2,000 for dues. So there's his savings from $3,400 to $2,800. And he's including the insurance of both policies equals $800 total, as an estimate. So, from $3,400 to $2,800.
I think for people that are undecided, the easiest thing to do is contact your insurance now for a quote for an HO set. And if you already have a rough estimate of $400,
and I'm going to say, at that point, call multiple. Make sure you get a good quote. Patrick said he could actually supply me with a few names of people that he works regularly with that really understand the HO6 policies. I can tell you, I have an HO6 policy in my place. It took me 20 people, not literally, but it felt like it. It was probably going through about 5 or 6 different people to try to find my HO6 policy. Because they kept quoting me the wrong thing.
My insurance company didn't understand why I wasn't an agent.
We get that all the time.
Right.
I get phone calls every day asking
Newer townhomes, you are an HO6.
And I don't want to here. So for a young person coming in, curious why it hasn't been the way all along.
Because your documents are very old.
Right. So I'm glad that this is where we are now.
Your documents are older than you are.
And how blessed that nothing happened, so that nobody did have to have a, condemned place, and then their wall fall down, and then you have to deal with it. So,
Well, did it ever dawn on you your neighbor might not have insurance?
I'm sure they do. There's tape on their windows from that.
They cared enough to tape.
I don't want to open Pandora's box, but I want to address your topic of choice one more time about people being let into the units. I'll tell you, to be up north and to know in the back of your mind that if something goes south in your unit, you've got somebody that's going to be in there before the end of the day. That is the most comforting factor of living in a condominium association. I was just out of town for 13 days. And if something happened to my house, the water would have festered for 13 days. I'd have been glad to have somebody go in there.
I saw things consistently, whenever there's a storm deal.
Yeah, yeah.
Ours, yeah, the last store of ours was on it too. We actually had to go.
What's going on, and the shopkeepers, that's why I almost wish you would have sent it out with the numbers of the insurance so they could, because they're calling me and saying, what does this mean, what is it is, what are we gonna, you know, they don't know, and I didn't know the answer.
Well, if anyone has any further questions or knows anyone who has further questions, please direct them to your board member. Please direct them to Courtney. If we need to put together a subsequent letter to the membership, we can. It's going to kind of depend upon how the votes start coming in, if the votes start coming in.
They have.
So, and when you feel comfortable with your own, go ahead and bring it in and lodge it in with Courtney. We are allowed to keep a running tally, unlike electronic voting. Paper tally, we're allowed to actually keep a running tally and see where the numbers are running, yes and no, and
if you vote no, and if you vote no, you make it a phone call asking why.
Once you all
seriously, you might. If you vote no, we may be calling and asking why, so that we have clarification why. Do you know what I mean?
So that if it doesn't pass, what we could do to skin the cat a different way, how we could do it better.
But I will tell you, the majority of the votes that have come in, they are yes. Everyone's in favor of this.
Once you review and understand this sheet right here, you won't just sign that. You'll sign it and you'll try to convince your neighbors to sign it as well, because it's from a fiscal standpoint, it makes sense. And dollars.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Actually called me from Canada saying that you're not going to fix anything anymore except what's on that list. So, yeah, I have to like, no, they can't stop that. They have to fix it. So let us get everything more.
Why don't you ask them to call the office, and that way they can get a more direct and
they know the office number. Obviously, that's not where they wanted to go. I think they want to read it to themselves.
Well, and I think we've tried to educate the membership to the extent of those who showed up on the webinar and in person. I thank you very much for whether you understand it perfectly or had questions from beginning to end. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We're the 500 landmarks. You got the delivery points every 10 years, man. Booster Street, everything. Don't play.
Good job with the webinar. Party at your house.
Thank you. That's a pleasure. Any more questions, Frank? Appreciate it. Thank you.
Please be a service to you, let me know.
Thank you, buddy. I will.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. I'm going to
Well, if he hits something,
hey, how
above ground, you